Greetings, class. Today we'll be talking about how conflicting interests in Europe during the late 1800s and early 1900s set the stage for the four main causes of World War I and ultimately led to the spark that finally ignited this conflict in 1914. It's important to know that World War I goes by many names, including the Great War and the War to End All Wars, which is super ironic because there indeed will be another World War, World War II. The four major causes for World War I are militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism. All four of these historical processes were present in numerous European nations during the late 1800s and early 1900s. While each cause played a significant role on their own in leading to World War I, it was the fact that all four of them existed at the same time over an extended period of time that ultimately created a setting where a devastating global conflict like World War I or the Great War could occur. You will need to know these four causes. They are a major part of this unit and are just good to know as average citizens. And a helpful mnemonic device for remembering these causes is the acronym MAIN, M-A-I-N. An acronym is an abbreviation formed from the first letters of other words and is pronounced as a single word. With the acronym MAIN, M-A-I-N, each letter represents a different cause for World War I. The M stands for militarism, A stands for alliances, I stands for imperialism, and N stands for nationalism. This is why many people refer to the causes of World War I as the main causes of World War I. Two of the causes for this conflict we've already covered during our course this year, and in fact did so during our last unit. They are nationalism and imperialism. First, a quick recap of nationalism. A nation is a large body of people that is united by a common descent, a shared history, shared culture, and language that are living within a particular territory. And then nationalism is the intense devotion and love that a person feels towards their nation. Nationalism in Europe had emerged in the 1800s during the Napoleonic era, and as various ethnic groups tried to gain greater political unity and power, leading to the creation of new countries like Germany and Italy, and also the division of large old empires such as Austria-Hungary and the Ottoman Empire, which began to break apart into smaller nations. During the 1900s, nationalism had led to greater competition between the different European countries who would try to one-up each other by achieving greater military success and acquiring more land and power. The next main cause is imperialism. Imperialism is when one country takes over or extends its influence over another country or state. Many powerful European kingdoms such as Germany, France, and Great Britain, as well as the United States and Japan, participated in imperialism during the late 1800s and early 1900s. Countries performed imperialism for political, economic, and social reasons. The number of colonies a country acquired through imperialism was often used as a measurement for the strength and power and prestige of that country. The third cause for the main cause of World War I is militarism. Militarism is the glorification of armed strength. Many European leaders believed they could achieve their imperialism and nationalistic goals through the threat or use of force. As a result, by the start of the 1900s, many European countries had built up large armies and navies. Militarism had become so aggressive that nations actually strategized in advance and created plans for how best to invade their rival countries and neighbors. An example of this kind of planning would be Plan Number 17, or the Schlieffen Plan. Named after the German general who devised it, the Schlieffen Plan was a German strategy for invading Germany's major rival, France, that required it to invade not through their shared, heavily fortified border, but instead through the military weak and neutral region of Belgium. Militarism also led to the creation of more modern and deadly types of weapons. The photo shown here is that of a dreadnought, which is the world's first modern battleship and an example of new military innovations. This was first created by the British, and then due to nationalism and militarism, it was quickly replicated and built by Germany. Soon, each country was racing each other to see who could build the deadliest weapons first. The final main cause for World War I is alliance systems. This would be the A in main. The unification of Italy and especially Germany into powerful nation states disrupted the balance of power that had existed in Europe since the defeat of Napoleon and the Congress of Vienna in 1815. To ensure that your country would not be conquered by larger neighboring countries, alliances would be created to enhance the strength of smaller states. The idea behind alliances was that if your enemy attacked you or was being aggressive towards your state, your nation could defend itself by getting assistance from its ally. If one member of an alliance was attacked, all participants in that alliance would work together to defend that country that was under siege. When one country formed an alliance in a defensive or in an offensive manner, it actually ended up encouraging their rivals to also complete and create their own alliances as well. And soon it became a race across Europe to see which state could build the most powerful set of alliances and avoid potentially being isolated if there ever was a massive war. Several countries would end up having multiple alliances, and some alliances were public and meant to intimidate and be seen as a sign of power to their rivals, while others were secret and only known by the leaders of that nation that was part of that alliance. These alliance systems created a situation where if one country was attacked, it would eventually drag all other European nations into the conflict, sort of like knocking over stacked up dominoes where one falls after the next. The two most powerful pre-war alliances, so alliances that existed before the war and the fighting began, were the Triple Alliance, which consisted of Germany, Austria-Hungary, and Italy, and the Triple Entente Alliance, which consisted of France, Russia, and Great Britain. When the war finally does begin, the Triple Alliance will become known as the Central Powers, and the Triple Entente will end up becoming known as the Allied Powers. Some of the countries that were part of these alliances, like Italy, will actually end up switching sides when the fighting begins. Italy was once part of the Central or the Triple Alliance powers, but then they're going to switch and become part of the Allied powers. This is going to take place because many countries would end up having multiple secret alliances and would only honor the alliance that seemed to be most beneficial to them if that side won. For several decades, militarism, alliances, imperialism, and nationalism had been brewing together to create a climate in Europe where a massive modern war could break out at any minute. All that was needed was some type of violent event or catastrophe to spark a chain reaction that would bring the entire region or area of Europe into war. That spark ended up coming from an area called the Balkans. The Balkan Peninsula is located in southeastern Europe. The region is made up of dozens of different ethnic groups and nations that were each competing with each other for land and greater sovereignty. Many of these nations claimed the same area as their homeland and were willing to go to war or to all-out conflict to try and control that area of land. Centuries of violent history, ethnic tension, and disputed borders made this area volatile, and it became known as the Balkan powder kegs, since it was combustible like a giant keg of gunpowder. It could explode at any moment. The cartoon to the left shows the anxiety that other European countries felt about the situation in the Balkans, which is often referred to as the Balkan powder keg. A major source of tension came from Serbia in the Balkans. Serbia was a small, newly created country in 1878 that was comprised mostly of people with Slavic ethnicity. The Serbian people promoted a concept called Pan-Slavism, which was a nationalist movement seeking to expand the size of Serbia by creating a large Slavic state, so a country comprised of Slavic people. Under Pan-Slavism, Russia, which is the largest country composed of mostly Slavic people, would lead and protect this newly created Slavic state and expand its influence in the Balkans and in the Middle East. If Pan-Slavism was successful, it would greatly strengthen Russia and Serbia at the expense of their political rivals. Serbian nationals especially wanted to gain the provinces of Bosnia-Herzegovina, since it would provide landlocked Serbia access to the Adriatic Sea, giving them a port and a place to have a strong navy and trade center. Sadly for Serbia, Bosnia-Herzegovina was under the control of Austria-Hungary, who refused to give up control of this region. This enraged Serbian nationalists and led to the creation of radical groups that were willing to use whichever means necessary to acquire the land as Bosnia-Herzegovina. During all this, The spark that will eventually ignite this Balkan powder keg came on June 28, 1914, when the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, the Archduke Francis Ferdinand, and his wife were visiting Sarajevo, the capital of Bosnia-Herzegovina. As they rode in an open automobile, Gavrilo Princip, a member of a Serbian nationalist group called the Black Hand, assassinated both of them. The Austro-Hungarian Empire was so furious by this attack and this act of terrorism that they delivered an ultimatum to Serbia. An ultimatum is where one party threatens harmful action if the demands it has made are not met. The demands that Austria-Hungary made were unrealistic to Serbia, and as a result, Serbia was forced to refuse this ultimatum. This then resulted in Austria-Hungary declaring war against Serbia because they did not fulfill the ultimatum. Now, Austria-Hungary's declaration of war on Serbia caused a chain reaction with various alliance systems in Europe and dragged many countries into the war. After Austria-Hungary declared war against Serbia, many countries began to mobilize or strategically move and prepare their armies for war. Serbia's strongest ally, Russia, mobilized its massive army and its troops to its country's border with Austria-Hungary and Germany. Germany responded by demanding that Russia stop its mobilization, or else it would be forced to declare war against Russia. To this threat, Russia promptly refused and continued to mobilize, and in August of 1914, Germany declared war against Russia. Shortly after this, at roughly the exact same time, Germany will also declare war against France, who had been a long-time rival of Germany. Germany was assuming that France would aid its ally Russia. Hoping to gain an advantage against France, Germany then immediately enacted the Schlieffen Plan and invaded France in a surprise attack by going around the heavily fortified border shared by Germany and France, and invading instead the neutral, non-militarized country of Belgium. In response to this act of aggression by Germany against a peaceful, neutral nation like Belgium, Britain declared war against Germany. And at this point, all the major countries of Europe had become belligerents or warring nations and would eventually become known as the Great War, World War I. In the following months, more nations became belligerents in this conflict. Both Japan and Italy joined the Allied alliances, and with the hope of expanding their imperial domains by seizing colonies and land from Germany. In response, Germany created alliances with the Ottoman Empire and Bulgaria. The Ottoman Empire in particular was an important ally for Germany because of its strategic location and ability to disrupt Russia's access to resources and naval use. With these alliances firmly established and the fighting already occurring, the Great War had already begun.